Very cool. Welcome, Steve. Let's get started. Maybe a small class today.
Yay.
So let's start by just settling in. I just want to make sure you're conscious about how you're feeling this morning. Maybe we can start to just pay attention to any sensations that may be going on. Maybe your body's feeling a little tired, you're feeling sleepy, you're feeling awake. Just want to notice that. Let's take a few deep breaths. And just settle into the position and just start to see if you can feel that you're awake or you're aware. And there's this awareness that's radiating from you. You just want to settle into that place. Just keep taking a few more breaths. And just notice that this awareness is constant all the time. And we just need to notice that it is there. It's easy to miss, but easy to find too. Cool. So this is class 4, and we're making our way through our text. So in the last class, we kind of covered the body, and we got a breakdown of what the body is from the perspective of yoga. We saw that there's 3 kinds of bodies. There's the physical body, which contains all of the physical senses, and obviously the physical matter, all of the bones and everything like that, the fat, the blood, and that's the most grossest form of our experience of the body. And then we learned about the subtle body, which is more subtle than the gross body, and this contains our inner world of experiences. So the world of imagination, the world of thinking, the world of memory, and we learned that this body also has sense organs. So we have the inner sense organs, and these are actually more, I would say, closer in creating an experience for us than the physical senses. And we've had moments in our day when we may be when we're not paying attention to something, and we may miss a sound, or like you're involved in a book, someone calls your name out, and you're just not able to even recognize that your name is being called out, right? Just because the physical senses are active, but the inner sense is not active. So that's something to think about. So also, like when you're dreaming, you can hear in a dream, you can see in a dream, and the way you're able to do those things is because of the fact that we have inner senses as well. And then there's also the fact that we have these organs of action. Organs of action are essentially, the hands, legs, speech, and the genitals. And what this does is, like, it essentially allows us to express ourselves, where we can, walk, and we can move around, we can say things, we can expend our energy essentially. So you can, like, a good way that my teacher frames it is like, the senses provide a doorway for input to come in, so energy in, and then organs of action as a way to kind of expend this energy, so energy out. So we have these sort of 10, they call 10 organs in yoga. We normally in the Western world we consider that we only have 5 organs, but actually in this framework we have 10 organs. So 5 organs of the senses and 5 organs of the action. Doesn't matter, this is just technicalities, but essentially just kind of useful to think about, think from this framework. So that's our subtle body. And then we have the causal body, which is the cause for all of my dream and waking experiences. Like, why do I wake up to become, this person who's living in Oakland, and brown person, all of that, because there is this causal set of impressions and memory, which are both conscious and unconscious, which kind of make me who I am. Make my subtle body do the things that it does, and makes my physical body do the things that it does. I can sleep for 2 days straight and wake up and still be the same person, and it's the causal body which kind of holds that thing in place. And we're not going to see the causal body as like we see the subtle body, or we see the physical body, right? I can see my physical body, I can see my thoughts and desires, but I cannot see the cause of these desires, right? Like the cause, it's kind of this energy and these things held in place, and you don't have to see it, because this is essentially the cause for our identity and our sort of ego to be held in place. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get beyond it, so we don't have to understand this causal body at all. What we want to understand is, how do I be free? And this is kind of giving us a framework to say, okay, these are the things that we are not. Certainly we experience the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body, but we are neither of these things. So we want to kind of like look at something that we are, and we want to keep negating what we are not. So that's the process that we are constantly going to be taking on, which is a process of negation. We're going to keep negating, or not paying attention to things that we are not. And by that process, what's going to happen is, after some time, we're going to get to a place of what we are. And that's where we will be asserting who we are. And until we have negated what we are not, it's very hard to come to that place. So this is this process of like, we're going to go through this, which is a process of discrimination that we're going to keep doing. So that's where we are. We haven't gotten to this process of discrimination. We're going to start that today. So any thoughts or questions or anything that may have come up for any one of you that you want to talk about last couple of weeks? Also, Becca's here. Hi, Becca.
Hi, Puneet.
Good to hear your voice. Welcome. Cool. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen. I feel like my Zoom window has disappeared. Can you all see my screen? So I'm going to stop my share. Yeah, okay. Start it again. Oh. Cool.
I can see it.
So I think we were on verse 15, if I'm correct. So we finished 14, which was the causal body. All right, we're going to do verse 15. Panchakoshadi yogena tattanmaya ivastitaha shuddhatma nilavastran yogena spatiko yatha. So in its identification with the 5 sheets, the immaculate Atman appears to have borrowed their qualities upon itself, as in the case of a crystal, which appears blue or yellow, depending on the color of the cloth in its vicinity. All right, so it's a long verse, so let's kind of break it apart. So in its identification with the 5 sheets, so, we had this sort of breakdown of the body. We're not going to go too much into detail of this breakdown, but essentially there's 5 sheets in our experience, which is slightly different from the body. It's more about what is the constituents of our, you could say body, but also like there's this sort of gross aspect to us, and there's a subtle aspect to us. So we can kind of go through that exercise. So the outermost sheath is the physical sheath, which is the food sheath. Kind of similar to the physical body. It contains all of the physical material that constitutes the body. So the bones, the fat, the blood, all of the tissues, all of that, right? So there's the physical aspect, and the way we make that is by eating, right? So we eat food. Yeah. So it's so some of these traditions and some of these I would say other yogas and other sort of spiritual things focus a lot on food, which is like, it's very important to eat the right food because, it's your body, right? Whatever you eat is kind of going into your body and you're creating this body. So you may want to eat something that's healthy, right? If you eat shitty food, your body is going to be shitty. It's very sort of directly related, right? What goes in gets made into this body. So the body we have to clearly understand, which is essentially absorbed from this world, right? We are not something that we are creating. We are essentially borrowing it by eating food, and it gets assimilated, and then what doesn't gets thrown out in the form of poop, right? So that's the physical sheath. One level closer to that is the mental sheath. So it has similar to the subtle body, we have this mental layer, and this also consists of our the 5 organs of action, 5 organs of senses, the memories, the ego sense, all of that. So like this mental sheath is also sort of like borrowed, you could say, right? Like all of our personalities, all of the ideas that we believe in, all of our sort of desires, they kind of come from outside. It's not like we are really born with it. We kind of learn about this world. Some things attract us, some things we don't like. And all of that is sort of absorbed, right? As a baby, we were very different. And as we sort of grow up and we change our personality, we change our things that we really want, we pursue those things, and then we realize we don't really wanted them and we pursue something else. So all of this is this dynamic absorption and assimilation that's happening even in the mental world, right? And we're constantly changing our view about this world. So both the physical, it's called the physical sheath. The Sanskrit is the Annamaya Kosha. Both of them, and the inner mental sheath, both of them are borrowed, which we kind of absorbed from the external. And so we are not either of those things. And what this is saying is that our ego, based on where we are at, gets identified, right? So if you're very body identified, for example, we will spend a lot of energy just trying to maintain this body. Right? You can see there's lots of people in this world who kind of like, go all out and just making sure they look a certain way and like they cannot look another way. And like a lot of energy goes down just trying to hold on to the body in a certain image that they have. And when that image doesn't match what they, what it is, and then there's a lot of like conflict there. So the ego can be sort of identified at multiple layers. So the outermost layer is the physical layer. Some people can get beyond that, right? It's like, okay, I have a body, I'm going to take care of it, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world if, the body is not the way I want it to be. So then there's like, we have a slight, these kinds of people may have a slightly subtle identification, which is to the mental sheath, where I can be attached to, my personality. I could be attached to my desires. And here the physical also could mean like, outside stuff, right? Which is like my house and my car. So I could be attached to the physical world, but then if that's okay, I could be attached to the mental world, which is I want to be a certain way. I want to, have a certain kinds of like intelligent, like I value intelligence or whatever it is, right? Like I have this personality, which I kind of try to adhere to. I need people to think I'm smart. I need people to think I'm successful. That's all from the mental layer. And what this is saying, you're not that either, right? You can kind of be aware of all of those things. And this work is going to say that if you're aware of something, you're not it. You are the one who's looking at it, right? You are the one that's looking at your thoughts. You are the one who's looking at your desires. You are the one looking at your personality too. So you can't really be it, but it's certainly an experience, and we can get identified so easily because, some thought may be very juicy where, you want to impress somebody, or you want to look a certain way, or you want to appear a certain way. And then all of our energies go towards kind of maintaining that appearance. So that's the second sheath, the mental sheath. The third sheath is called the Pranamaya Kosha, which is the energy sheath. And this sheath is, about our energy body. So we have an energy body as well. Sometimes we feel high energy, sometimes we feel low energy. Sometimes we can do some certain practices that can activate energy, and the food that we eat and the thoughts that we sort of absorb, all of them sort of subtly affect this energy as well, right? So if you're in a place where people are like super blissed out and super happy, you can kind of go there and you can kind of, absorb their energy, right? And we feel kind of blissed out. So this energy kind of goes up and energy kind of goes down based on experiences. So we want to kind of notice that this is constantly happening. And you're not that either. It's also, and we can get attached to this place as well, where I constantly want to feel high energy, right? I constantly want to I don't want to feel low energy, so I'll do whatever it takes to be super high energy all the time. And if you can see it, you're not it. That's kind of like the Cliff Notes version of what we're going to go through, which is you can even see energy. You're not the energy. You're the one who looks at the energy. So this is the third sheath, the energy sheath. The fourth sheath is the intellectual sheath. It's called the Vijnana Maya Kosha. And the fourth sheath is interesting. It's the place where the intellect is. It's the one that can sort of have thoughts. It's the one that can make judgments. It's the one that can reflect. We can have an experience, and then later on you can think about the experience and say, was it fun? Was it not fun? Was the place, was the weather hot? Was it cold? All of those things that's happening in this intellect. And there's the sheath here, where this place where you can kind of think. Right, and we can experience that. Like if I ask you to think about what you ate, in your last meal, you can kind of go there and you can maybe relive the experience. You can kind of go into detail of like what that experience was. And this is happening in this intellectual sheath. And this is kind of also, so this is kind of similar to a mental sheath, but slightly different, where the mental sheath was more about this sort of emotional nature of our experience, and this is more of like the the human nature of our experience, where we can think, we can have desires. The mental nature was more of like the animalistic nature, which is we have emotions, we have sort of these fear and like desires and greed and like those kinds of place, that place. But the intellect is a slightly different place, right, where it's more clean, where we can think and we can kind of reflect on things. And in this place is kind of important in this work, as we will see, is because this is the place where we can look at who we are. Because when we have a clean and pure intellect, as we say in this work, which is an intellect where there are fewer thoughts, not about whether you have good thoughts or bad thoughts, but just fewer thoughts in general, in that place, we can kind of turn our attention and we can notice, where is this awareness coming from? And that's kind of what we want to do, which is kind of turn our attention inwards. Usually we want to turn, our attention is always turned outwards, which is I'm looking at all the stuff that's going on. I want to fulfill all of my desires, and it's all external, energy expending attention. But instead we want to turn our attention inwards. And the intellect kind of helps with that. So that's an instrument through which I experience myself, and have the pure experience of the self also, which is without any other thing coming in the way. So that's the intellectual sheath. And finally, we have the bliss sheath, which is right in the middle, right, or rather the closest to you. And this is interesting because even bliss that we experience in this world, when I get what I want, I'm pretty blissful, right? So, and that's an experience that everyone has. That's why we all are doing what we want to do, which is we all want to get what we want, because we feel good when we get what we want. That's an experience we all can sort of agree with. So there is bliss when I get what I want. And the sheath here is basically, we get identified with that because we start to say, oh, it's the object which I got, which is the cause of the bliss. And this is sort of a misunderstanding. And you know, my teacher kind of has this really nice way to frame it, which is the pleasure principle, where he says, you know, pleasure, we all feel pleasure and happiness when we get what we want, but our false understanding is that it's because of the object that we feel bliss. And that's the pleasure principle, which is, you know, our false understanding makes us believe that it's the objects where the bliss is and holds our desires in place. So let's say, for example, I really thought that, you know, eating a mango, I feel like I'm missing mangoes a lot. Mango season is going to start very soon in India, which is why my mind keeps going there. But if I love eating mangoes, and I feel that, you know, mangoes is the cause of happiness, my entire, you know, mind space is going to be thinking about mangoes and how to get a mango. And if I strive to get a mango and if I don't get the mango, I'm going to be superly disappointed and dejected because I have this belief and this understanding that mangoes is where it's at. And certainly when I do eat a mango, I do feel good, right? So now my mind is confused and it says, okay, why, you know, I've never sort of analyzed the experience to kind of understand what is going on. It's just happened so quickly that I just say, oh, it's the mango, which is blissful, not realizing that when I experience the mango, what has happened? And what has happened is that for a moment, you know, for a few moments, maybe in the case of a mango, maybe longer in some other experiences, but for some time, my mind has stopped. And essentially, you know, the word is my mind has become pure again, which is it has no more desires. While I'm experiencing the mango, I'm only experiencing the mango. I'm not thinking about, you know, the boss I want to impress, the partner I want to like, the, you know, partner I want to get, or like this person I want to impress, or like this job I want to get. All these other desires that I have are kind of gone away for a moment. And I'm only experiencing the mango. And when my attention is fully on something, I feel really blissful. And, you know, and then I say, oh, it's the mango which caused me to feel that way. Not realizing that actually my mind, which was without other desires, is actually blissful. And it just so happened that I made the mind go to, you know, get into that condition because of the mango. And now my mind thinks it's the mango which is the cause. So this is constantly going on, where I'm engaging in the world, something awesome happens where when I'm engaging with something, my mind stops. And then I think, oh, it's the thing that made my mind stop. Not, which is true, it did make my mind stop, but now I say I want the thing, and not realizing that, oh, the mind is what is quietened, and the self was free to, what's the word? The bliss of the self was revealed in those moments. And this is happening all the time. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it, and we're going to see that is it possible to experience the bliss of the self without any objects? Because once we start to do that, then our insistence in the world being a certain way is going to fall down, because we realize that the world cannot really offer, or rather, let me reframe that. The world can offer stuff, but what it does is it just reveals my bliss, which is already in me. All it's doing is it's revealing what is me already. So all I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, can I get to this place without anything? And if I can get to this place without anything, then the objects will lose its, you know, this grip and this hold on me. And then we will really start to do the things that we want, not the things that we think we want, which is a slight difference. And, you know, some of you may think, oh, I may just like not do anything and just like be blissed out all the time. You may, but, you know, that kind of gets, I wouldn't say boring, but, you know, the body has to do something. Like we have to do something in this world. And if we are no longer attracted to something because of a false understanding that it will give you happiness, you will now start to do things that will really move you or like inspire you or what is just needed around you. Like those are going to be the motivations and not some false, misguided, you know, I would say misguided understanding of what this can really give you. The world can really not give you lasting happiness, right? We have all experienced that, which is I've thought I wanted something and I got it. And then I'm like, okay, this is fine. Now I want something else. But with this, once we get this, we'll realize that bliss is right here. It's not outside. And this bliss can be accessed all the time because it is me. So that's kind of the goal. And all these different sheets, coming back to the sheets, get in the way because I get identified with different parts in my journey of life. You know, I'm identified with the body for a long time, and then if that's not there, then I may be identified with my personality. If that's not there, I may be identified with how I'm feeling energy-wise. If that's not there, I may be identified with my how intelligent I am. If that's not there, I may be identified with like some object with the fact that I think it may give me bliss. So all these different like sheets are there. And we have to see that we are neither of these things. We are apart from all of them. And we have to sort of like not pay attention to these things that we are not. And finally, to get to a place where we can pay attention to something that we are. So this is a very sort of, we said a lot, I mean, we went through a lot in this one. So feel free to like ask me anything if you have questions. So continuing on this, it says the crystal appears blue, right? So this is essentially, we're talking about superimposition. So this is another sort of idea that we are given here, which is the self has certain qualities. You know, so self, the quality of the self is bliss itself. And the quality of the world is that it actually has no quality. All of our experiences come from within. And based on how we are feeling within, we project that quality on the outside. So someone makes you feel very good, you're like, oh, this person is amazing. Wow, what an awesome person, right? I love being with this person. Makes me feel so good. But actually what's happened is I have experienced the good from within. Similarly, if someone makes you feel terrible, you're like, oh, this person is terrible. I don't want to hang out with them. But actually what's happened is even the terribleness has come from within, right? So every experience is actually happening from within, but this experience I superimpose on the object. It could be a person, it could be an experience, it could be an object, but I'm always projecting, not realizing that all of the experiences are happening from within. So this is the superimposition that happens where I put the qualities of the self onto the not self, and I put the qualities of the not self onto the self. So in the case of when somebody is making you feel good, I'm putting the qualities of the self, which is the quality of bliss. The quality of the self is bliss. And I'm projecting that onto the person. And I'm saying, oh, this person is making me feel good. I want to hang out with this person more. And similarly, when something makes you feel terrible, or like you're feeling terrible, you think it is the self, which is terrible. So this is constantly happening throughout the day. And we want to break this down and remove this sort of misunderstanding. And we're going to get deeper into this, how to do that. But you know, first we want to know what it is to get out of it. Cool. Any thoughts about this? Okay, let's do the next one. Vapustu shadibhi kaushair yuktam yuktya vadhatatah atman antaram shuddham vicha tundalam yatha. So through discriminative analysis and logical thinking, one should separate the pure self within from the sheets, as one separates the rice from the husk, bran, and so on that are covering it. So this is the discrimination that I was talking about. So we haven't even given the word here. So the word is viveka. And this is like the first practice that is prescribed in this work, which is this process of discrimination. And when you say discriminate, you're essentially means that you're separating one from the other. That's essentially what discrimination is. And in this case, we are separating the self, which is the Atman, which is who I am, with what I am not. And this is happening through, this is an intellectual process, right? You're using the mind to do it. So, you know, we just learned that there's all these sheets that exist. And we are saying that whenever our mind's attention goes and gets identified with something, we want to discriminate and say, oh, am I this? I am the one looking at this, so I'm not it. And when we drop our identification with it. So, you know, you're going about your day, somebody comes, you know, in front of you, you know, triggers you, and you feel triggered. So you're basically applying, you know, it's of course difficult to remember to apply this thing, but as we do it more, we're going to remember. So the discrimination analysis is going to be like, I am seeing this trigger, or I am seeing this experience, or I'm seeing this person. I'm the one looking at this person. So I'm not the person. So I'm not the, you know, the fear, or I'm not the even, let's say you're feeling super ecstatic. I'm not even the ecstasy. I'm the one looking at it. So we want to constantly like keep coming back to this place of the witness, you could say, or even, I wouldn't even say so much as the witness, like you would keep coming back to the awareness. Like, yes, I am the awareness. I'm not the content of what's in the awareness. I'm the awareness. So we keep coming back instead of going, you know, getting lost in the content. So this is this discrimination. And the logical thinking is that you know, if this doesn't make logical sense, then it's very hard to do. So the logic here is that, you know, in every experience, there is a subject and there's an object, and then there's the experience. It's the subject which is experiencing the object. The subject cannot be the object in every experience, right? Any experience which is perceivable, and you can look at it from any level. You can look at it from the physical level. You can look at it from the mental level. You can look at it from the emotional level. You can look at it from the intellectual level or the thought level. All of those experiences, there's always a subject and there's always an object. So there is this relationship. So, you know, it's very easy to look at a cup and say, yes, I am not a cup. Very clear. You know, I'm not the physical world. You know, I'm the one looking at it. I'm not my car. I'm not my house, right? Like that's very easy. But the same relationship applies to everything. I'm not my emotion. I can look at my emotion in the exact same way that I can look at a car. It's just that one is further away in my experience and one is closer. At least it appears closer, right? The emotion is like right here, but the car is maybe further away. So this is this discriminative analysis and logical thinking. We have to say, yes, there is logically, this makes sense. It may not make sense experientially. I may still think I'm my emotions. I may still think I am my thoughts, but logically, it's like, okay, at least it makes logical sense. And if we can get there, then we can start to do this. And I promise you, the more you do it, the more this sort of experiential understanding is going to come, which is there is something apart from all of this stuff that I keep focusing on. It is the one that is, you know, creating my experience for me. It's the one that is, you know, shining forth and illuminating this entire world for me. And that is what we want to clearly perceive. But we want to start by keep discriminating and removing our attention from the sheets, as this verse says. And the analogy is like, you know, as we separate the rice from the husk, right? So if you've ever looked at a piece of rice, it's covered in husk and you kind of have to separate it and remove the husk, and what you're left with is the rice. And what this is saying is that it's you have to put in some attention. It doesn't just happen without being inattentive. So we have to pay attention and put in this energy, and we have to do this in the world and not just, in the meditation. So when we're meditating, this is also a good practice where, when thoughts are coming up, we can put the thoughts on the side and we can apply the same discriminative analysis. Just I'm the one who is experiencing the thoughts, so I'm not the thoughts. Put it on the side. Then another thought would come in. We do the same thing with a new thought. So this is happening moment to moment, thought by thought, experience by experience. We're saying we are not this experience, we're not this experience, we're not this experience. And what this may seem like, it's like a mechanical process, but no, we have to take every experience as a fresh experience. And we have to be completely aware and attentive, and because otherwise your mind is going to go to sleep. So a lot of energy has to be applied to just keep the mind, not engaged in the thought. So it's very easy for the mind firstly to be lost in the thought, but then a lot of energy has to be in place to keep the mind just here, just like, looking at the thought and not engaging it. And so, every moment we have to be aware, have to pay attention. And over time, this doesn't come overnight, this doesn't come in a week, but this will take a few months. But if we put our attention to it and our energy into it, it's going to transform the mind, guarantee you. So this is the practice, and we're going to kind of go into a little bit detail of what this is too. Any questions about this? It's important. We've been giving practices, and this is not a philosophy class. This is a class where we are given tools and processes. We have to apply this, because without application, this is just, you're going to get a few more ideas, you're going to feel happy about it, but it wouldn't transform you. So if you're looking for transformation, this comes with practice and comes with applying these tools in your day-to-day. So please make sure that you understand what the practice is, and then, and the second part is also doing it daily. So ask me if this doesn't make sense. Okay, let's do the next one. So, Sada sarvagato pyatma na sarvatra vabhasate buddha veva vabhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. So the Atman does not shine in everything, although it is all pervading. It manifests only in the inner equipment, the intellect, buddhi, just as the reflection in a clean mirror. All right, so one doubt that people have is that, if the Atman is everywhere, why don't I see it? Or like, why don't I perceive it? And this is a very valid doubt. Why is it that all animals are not self-realized, right? Like, why? Or so the answer to that is that, the Atman is like, consciousness is everywhere, but we need an instrument to be able to perceive it. So there's always an instrumental cause for an outcome, right? Like if I'm trying to see, I can't use my ears, right? I need eyes. And if I'm like trying to like touch something, I need my physical skin to make contact with something. So there is always an instrumental cause for some experience. And the instrumental cause for realizing the self is the intellect. Because in the end, it's the intellect which kind of is needed to pay attention to something, right? To be able to focus the mind's gaze on something. And, the human being is the only, I would say, only animal that we know of, or the only species that we know of, that has a very developing intellect that can reflect, that can point to something, pay attention to something, can ignore, our animal needs, right? Like if you look at an animal, they're all governed by pretty much like, basic set of desires. Once those desires are met, they're like sleeping, right? Like, so, but the human being can have an infinite number of desires. Why? Because we can think, we can imagine something that doesn't exist. and this because of a very developed intellect. And the intellect is the place which can point outwards, but also can point inwards. That's the only one that can do it. All the other ones are just like outward going. The emotional body, the physical body is all focused on the outer. So only the human being can do this work. And secondly, the prerequisite for the human being is that the intellect needs to be clean, which means that it needs to be in a place where it's not bogged down by like hundreds of thoughts, where I'm not like focusing on like stuff that's always happening in the mind, where I can kind of put things on the side. The mind is complaining, I can put it on the side. The body is complaining, I can put it on the side. My attention is not constantly, unconsciously being dragged out all the time. Like I have this ability to like kind of rest, truly rest, which is, not be unconsciously just busy. You know how we are just like, sometimes it's busy for no reason. We just want to like, we're just uneasy. You just want to keep doing something. But we have come to a place where the intellect can just rest, where it's not kind of unconsciously engaged in something. It's just in this place. And in this place, what happens is that the Atman, or the self, which is always shining, it's illuminating this entire experience, it's always on. In this place where the mind has kind of calmed down, very easy to perceive the Atman. And that's the entire process of all spiritual endeavors, which is how do I get to a place where my mind kind of settles down, and because my mind has settled, I can perceive the Atman. So the good analogy is like we are in a swimming pool, and we're trying to look at the bottom of the floor, and until the waters have kind of settled down, you can never look at the bottom of the floor, right? Because there's too much turbulence, and there's just no way to look at the bottom of the floor. But the moment the turbulence stops and the swimming pool kind of calms down, you can easily perceive the bottom. You don't have to do anything extra. It's like the consequence of it settling down means the bottom is available to see. Same thing with this, where you don't have to do anything other than settling the mind. That is very hard to do, and it has to be calm for a certain amount of time, so you have enough time to look. If it's just for an instant, then it's not really enough to kind of see it. You may get a flash, but let's imagine if you're in a swimming pool and you're trying to search for something at the bottom. So let's say somebody's in the pool, like swimming. You can't really see anything because like there's too much turbulence. But you're like, dude, get out. I want to look at the bottom. After a certain time, like the shaking stops, and then you can like scan the bottom and you can look around and you're like, there I see the the ring or like the watch or whatever, right? I found it. But until that person was not out, and until the waters did not settle, and until you had enough time to scan, it would have been very difficult. So it's the same process. Yeah, so that's what this one means. Any thoughts about this one? All right. Let's do the next one. Dehendriyam anobuddhi prakritibhyo vilakshanam tadrit sakshinam vidyatmanam rajavat sada. So one should understand that the Atman is always like the king, distinct from the body, senses, mind, and intellect, which constitute the matter, prakriti, and it is the witness of their functions. Okay, so this book is, or rather, whenever we have poetry or any thing trying to describe it in language, we always love images, right? Like, kind of makes our understanding a little bit easier, at least for me, because I'm a visual person. I like to think about things from like visual analogies. So like this is like another visual analogy. Like if you have a king, the king is the one that controls and governs the district, or a queen, governs like a region or a kingdom or a land. And this person is like separate from the people, separate from the people in the court, separate from the the people who live in the kingdom, separate from people outside of the kingdom, right? So, but the king is responsible, or the queen is responsible for all of the rules, all of the land of the law, and without the queen or the king, the place cannot function. At least this is written back in 1,500 years ago, but that was sort of the society back then, right? So if you can, so just like that, the Atman is the governor of your body and your experience. Without the Atman, nothing can operate, and it is separate from all of them. So just like we sort of went through this, this exegesis of the sheaths. So just like that, the Atman is distinct from the body, the physical body, the subtle body, which has the senses of the mind, and the intellect. And what is the so we have this sort of conflict between the materialists and the spiritualists, right? Saying, oh, materialists believe there's nothing apart from matter, and the spiritualists believe that there is the spirit, right? So there's this conflict, and what this is saying is that the matter, all of that is visible, whatever that I perceive is all in the world of the material, but the one that is perceiving is separate from the material. We cannot say if it's spirit or not. It is just there, but unfortunately we will never see that as another object, right? You'll never see yourself as you see a cup or as you see a laptop. It's the one through which you can see. So I think at some point I spoke about how you can never see your eye, right? You can certainly see other things. You can see the sky, you can see the trees, you can see the room, but you can never see your eyes. You can see a reflection of an eye. You can see, somebody can take a picture of your face and say, okay, that's what my eye looks like. But you can never see your eye like you see the room, because it's the eyes which cause you to see. Similarly, you could never hear your ears. You can hear everything else, but if your ears were to make a sound, you can never hear it, because it's through the ears that you're hearing everything else. Similarly, you can say you can never, taste your tongue. You can taste everything else, but you cannot taste your tongue. The same way, you can never see yourself, because the self is the cause for everything else to be, it's the source of awareness. You can be aware of other things, but you can never be aware of awareness itself. In the same way, I mean, you can certainly say, yes, I'm aware, I know it, just like how you can say, I can see. Somebody says, no, you cannot see. I don't believe you. You never doubt that you can see, even though you can never really see your eyes. But because of your experience that you have sight, you can see. You either can see or you cannot, right? In the same way, you're aware. You will certainly feel aware. You're full of awareness. You're aware all the time. There's no moment where we're really not aware. We may be inattentive, but we are aware for sure. Can you prove that you're aware? Can you show me awareness? No. Just like I can never show you my eye, or I can never see my own eye for my own sort of verification. Same way, I can never see my awareness for my own verification. But what I can do is I can remove everything else from my awareness, and what remains is just awareness, so that I can say, oh, this is what it feels like to be looking at awareness or feeling awareness without anything in it. So I'm very clear about what awareness is. So we have this thing of if I'm trying to understand something, right, I'm trying to learn a new concept. If you give me the simplest explanation of just that one concept, it's going to be much easier than if you throw 20 things at me, right? And this is the same process. I want to remove all of the 20 things, that I'm left with only one thing. Then I can just look at that one thing and I'm like, okay, this is what the one thing feels like. without the influence of all these other 20 things. So we're going through the same process, which is I'm removing everything that I'm not. And what I'm left with is just the I, the self. And what this is saying is that whatever is not self is made of matter. So I am not matter. I'm something beyond matter. And, the I, that's why you see the it, the IT, and I is in capital. So, whenever you have something in capital, it's usually talking about the self. So, or you, right? So you are always the witness of everything. You're the witness of the body and its functions. You're the witness of the mind and its functions. You're a witness of the intellect and its functions. So if you are away from it, so this is the discrimination. Again, we're kind of going through the same discriminative process. So you can clearly see that you are separate from all of these things. And this is constantly hammering, hammering this point. And you have to keep seeing that, yes, I'm not my body, not my mind, not my intellect, and not as a mechanical process, but like as a moment to moment noticing. And that's the process that we have to go through. Thoughts about this one? Okay. Vyapritesh vindriyeshvatma vyapari va vivekinam drishyate bhreshu dhavastu dhavanniva yatha shashi. So the moon appears to be running when the clouds move in the sky. Likewise, to the non-discriminating person, the Atman appears to be active when it is observed through the functions of the sense organs. All right, so here there's again like this image about, the world is not what it appears to be, right? Like we certainly think that there are certain experiences that we have which we certainly feel to be true, but they're not true. So one of these examples is the moon moving, right? So when the clouds are moving, we get the sense that the moon is moving. So there's a sort of like, optical illusion that kind of happens. This is one example. It's happened even when you're sitting in a train, when you're sitting stationary and if the other train starts to move, you get this experience that, you're moving. So there's all these things that happen, which kind of confuse the mind because the mind is just absorbing information. And then we are using that information and making sort of a judgment and a conclusion about what we are perceiving. And that conclusion is not always true. So the moon is one example with the clouds. So similarly, what they're saying is to the person to someone who doesn't discriminate, we think that the body is active. We think that the mind is active. We think that, the physical world is sort of alive, but actually life is within. This life that is happening moment to moment is happening because of something within you that's, keeping your body in place. When that thing is no longer there, the body just falls, right? Like one of the, the prerequisite, I wouldn't say prerequisite. I remember like I've read in a, when Buddha was teaching, like when he used to initiate people into his, order or whatever, he used to say that you have to spend 3 months going to a cremation ground where all you see is looking at dead bodies. And the reason why that is to give us a clear understanding that, there is this body that we have, but there is something apart from the body that enlivens the body. But the moment that leaves, the body is just matter, right? So spending some time staring at dead bodies sounds kind of crazy, but what it does is that it makes our, death is such like a touchy concept in society where we don't want to understand and realize that we are actually going to die, right? Like that's a very sort of taboo topic to talk about. But the moment we realize that we are that the body is limited and it's going to die, that's like very important from a spiritual perspective, because it gives us this sense of urgency that we need to sort of go beyond the body. Or that's like when we accept that we are dying, then like we can kind of like, the fear of like dying can kind of go away. And what tends to happen is our, moment to moment experience can be more cherished, because we are grateful for like the time we have, right? Like, so, so kind of like going into a tangent, but like, the looking at a body and seeing that it can die and there's something within it that is causing the body to be alive, like that will kind of make us be more conscious of the fact that there is life in us, and this life is pulsating moment to moment, moment to moment. And a person who is non-discriminating may not ever notice this, and can live their entire life and can die, and it'll happen. But for someone like who is going through this process, we have to like see that yes, there is something that is conscious, and there's something that is just matter. Body is just matter, but within this body is this life and this self and the consciousness, or whatever word you want to use, but this is pulsating and keeping this body alive. Because of this life, it feels like my mind is active, or my mind is alive. Because of this life, it feels like my body is alive. But the moment this leaves the body becomes a corpse, and we burn it or bury it. It's no longer useful. But the body is useful only until it has life in it. So that's kind of the intention of this verse, which is we have to be logically think and be discriminating. And once we have this discrimination, we will start to see this, not as like an idea, but as a direct experience, which is, yes, this body is going to die, and this body is matter. This body is alive only because there is life in it. Life leaves, body is dead. So any thoughts about this one? Okay, let's do one more. Atma chaitanyamāsritya dehendriyam anodhiyah swakriyartheshu vartante suryalokam yathajana. So depending upon the Atman, which is of the nature of consciousness, the body, the senses, mind, and intellect engage themselves in their respective activities, just as people work depending upon the light of the sun. Okay, so the nature of the Atman has the nature of consciousness, which is, it is alive, it is aware, it is conscious, and it is conscious of what? It's conscious of the body, the senses, the mind, and all of them have their respective activities, which means that they all have their functions. So the body essentially is doing a bunch of like circulation of nutrients, it's doing digestion, it's doing like excretion, it's breathing. All of these things are happening. Heart is moving around, moving the blood around. All of this stuff is going on, and it's the function, and there is some memory in the body which makes it do the things that it does, and it's automatic, right? Most of it is automatic. You don't have to think about. Imagine if we had to like do all of those things consciously. It would be like so much work, but it just happens. Similarly, the mind has this ability to feel emotions. It can access memories, and that also is kind of automatic, where we automatically feel emotions. So the mind has a place where, or a space in which all of these emotions appear, and I sort of experience like my emotional world, and then there's this intellect, which is responsible for like thinking, and it has all these desires, it can reflect, has all these sort of capabilities that it can kind of do, and all of these things are just happening, and we can kind of pay attention to it, or we can not pay attention to it. This only happens because of the Atman, right? Uh, so I guess here they're talking about like the people work depending upon the light of the sun. So like, if you can think of the context of this book, it's written when there was no electricity. So like the sun was the source of activity, right? No, like all of the work that happened during daytime. And in the nighttime, there was not much light. So people usually were like inactive and sleeping and stuff. So now we have electricity, so we can do work even in the night. But in the context, that's the kind of analogy where like, yes, all activity is happening because of the light of the sun. The moment the sun is gone, the activity is no longer happening. So in the same way, when the Atman is there, body is active, it's doing its things, the mind is active, intellect's active. Atman is gone, dead. Mind stops working, body stops working, senses stop working. So this is kind of similar to the previous verse, which is only because of the Atman does this activity happen. So what this is hammering at is that you can there is this discrimination that you can do, which is all of the activities, all of the things that we are perceiving is happening, but you are separate from it. You are the one who can perceive it. So this is the sort of discrimination that we have to do moment to moment to moment to moment. At some point, what's going to happen is that our attention on the activities and attention on the mind, attention on the body and the senses will get to a place where I can choose to not pay attention to it. And that's all we're trying to do. It's not like, you have to become a dullard person where you don't care about your body and you don't care about your senses. No, it's more about creating this distance where I can choose to engage and I can choose to disengage. And if we can do that, then we have sort of conquered our mind and body and senses, because then we can, information will come in, because we have senses, like it'll get information from the external world, it'll get information, maybe from our past, from our memories, but we can choose to engage. And if we have this choice, then we have a lot more freedom. Because if we don't have choice, we have no freedom. And that's what we are working towards. How do we get to this place with choice? And we can only get there where we can be comfortable or actually get to a place where we are no longer paying attention to this consciously. And that we can do that by sort of like, moving our attention to some other place. So like, if I have to think about the mind, I'm going to say, no, I'm not the mind, I am the self. I am just awareness. So the attention is no longer on the content of what the thought was, or of what, maybe a sensation or the body or an emotion. We keep bringing our attention back to the fact that, yes, I am pure awareness. I'm not the body, I'm pure awareness. The moment I say I'm pure awareness and feel that awareness, my attention on the body or the thought or whatever it is has gone for a split second. It may go back again, but again, I can bring it back. So we're just changing and moving our attention. And this is the process that we keep doing over and over again until we just don't pay attention anymore. And we can kind of just stay in this place of pure awareness, stay there for enough time where we can see that, yes, I can understand what the nature of this place is and nature of who I am. And we'll get there. But just giving you a taste of, we're going to talk about what is the nature, because, that's also an interesting question. Like, what is the qualities of me? And it's not about, getting the answer in that way, but it's more about investigation, because it's all about investigation. Who am I? What is the nature of me? Am I just limited to my physical body? Am I just limited to my mental mind? Like, these are sort of the investigation that we're doing. And we can, so the process is like to not pay attention and see that, is there anything other than these things that I've considered as me? And see for yourself. Don't believe anything that I say. Take all of this as, a theory, as a possibility, because if you take it as a possibility, there is maybe a chance that you may get there. But if you say, no, this is completely not possible, then it is, that's what the universe will say, yes, it is not possible for you. But if you are slightly open, this work will be a lot more beneficial, or a lot more easier to percolate in your mind. Cool. So I think this is a good place to stop for today. We've done about 6 verses, so that's pretty good. Any thoughts about this? Anything that's been coming up? Has anyone had any problems with the practice, or have you been practicing? Has it been difficult? Because I know this is new. It's hard to make a habit out of something which is new. So would be helpful to share how it's going, so maybe other folks can also think about maybe adding something that you've been doing. We'd love to hear what's going on.
Hi, I just want to comment.
Sure.
Yeah, just the last part that you were saying, the first time I read Atmabodha, it all went over my head. It was just what? But yeah, the point that you made, the last point, is just keeping an open mind, or beginner's mind, right? It's just, okay, I'll try, I'll give it a try, and then little by little sticking in. And I appreciate having your perspective, because I have heard this from another teacher, and it's very useful to see it. Not really from a different point, but just said it different. The way you say it is different, and it's just very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, beginner's mind is very important, and I guess in anything that we do, right? Any endeavor. So yeah, thank you for having a beginner's mind. I always strive to try to have a beginner's mind wherever possible, and it's been helpful. Cool.
This is Steve. I had a more, like you said, sometimes your experience or your mind is unsettled, or for whatever, and it just happens. And I had that week. I think a lot of it is related to work, and it's easy to get swirled into that. But at the same time, what I do try to practice awareness, particularly when I'm running, it's just a motion. There was a sense that, okay, I'm running, and then I could imagine while I was running that I was just a character in a video game, and I wasn't really moving, but the earth was, moving towards me, and no matter which way I went, like you were talking about the optical illusion type thing. But so there's and then meditation, sitting quietly, and so there have been moments where I do feel, I'm not quite sure what, but just coming back to those split seconds where that you're not what you think you are, for a second. And then the other thing that seems to help me, and this is just, I firmly believe that, in the beginning was the word, and there was a reason for that, because I need to understand what in God's name I'm doing right now, and get a better so I read the book, and I read my notes, and I had watched the video to hear it a second time. So as these ideas become sort of a groundwork, and I know you've said if you decide to throw it away later, that's fine, but that has helped me to get to a point like we talked about today with the intellect as a doorway to calm that down. So if I understand these ideas a little better each time I read them, that seems to push me or nudge me towards how to allow, whether I'm running or meditating, for that to go a little better. But all that said, I was just lost this week in thought, and just ooh, shiny object.
Yeah.
Ooh, or what's that Family Guy? Ooh, piece of candy.
Right.
Anyway, that's what I did this week.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. And I think, the fact that you're even able to notice that you are lost is good, right? Like the mind can, I think, we kind of get to, at least I in the past was like, had moments where like I wanted to feel a certain way all the time, or if my mind gets like freaked out or like lost in desire or whatever it is during the week, like I was like, oh, this is like not how it's supposed to be, right? Because I've been doing all this work and like I'm supposed to not feel these emotions. And it's not so much about not feeling these emotions, it's more about like how are we handling them, right? Like, can we know, like just the fact that you're noticing that I'm feeling shitty, or like I'm just noticing that I'm having a terrible week itself has made you sort of distant from it, right? Maybe you didn't get sucked in as much as you may have in the past, and it only gets better in that way. It's like, there's fire around you, but I am wearing a fireproof jacket or something, right? Like that's kind of the analogy where there's thorns all over on the road, and I can maybe poke my finger, but I'm at least wearing shoes so I can walk around. So like, we may still feel stuff, but the way we engage with it and the way the energy passes through the body gets better, because in the end it's just like energy, and we don't talk about that so much in this, but as part of our experience we kind of start to develop this ability to let things flow through, and and even if it's a terrible experience, that experience which manifests as like some emotion which is in the end nothing but energy, you can kind of like, it can flow through and you're not kind of, you don't absorb so much of it. So you become this sort of translucent, see-through energy wise, where it's like things are just flowing through, and you engage with stuff that you care about and you let things go with where you don't care about it, and it'll get better over time. So keep doing it. Love it that you have you have applied this even to your running and like you're meditating, and soon it will percolate into other aspects of life, because in the end, once you start to recognize the self, it's on all the time. There's no place where it's not. So you can tune into that anywhere, at any time, and I hope that happens. Cool. Thank you for sharing, Steve. This is wonderful. So we have about 15 minutes left. Let's do a meditation before we end our class. Let's stop sharing. Cool. So make sure you're sitting upright if possible. Then lying down. Sit up. Make sure your spine is erect. Just notice if your head, back is aligned in a straight line, and if it's not, just gently move forward or backward until you feel your head is gently balanced on your shoulders. Start by taking a few breaths. Just be aware of this breath going in and out of your lungs. You can see the breath. You can experience the breath. You are not the breath. You are the one who is experiencing the breath. So we want to do this discriminative analysis and investigation and see if this is true. I am always separate from my experiences. I'm the one who's looking at the experience. I'm the one who's seeing or hearing or touching or tasting. When I eat my food, I'm the one who's looking and tasting the food. So when we are sitting and meditating, we want to continue this investigative practice. When thoughts are coming up, we want to notice that I am the one who's looking at the thoughts. I am not the thoughts. I am pure awareness. This I is free from the thoughts. It's never touched by the thoughts. If I think of a happy thought, if I think of a terrifying thought, this I is untouched. It illumines it exactly the same. It has no biases. We want to get very familiar with this I. And we get there by not paying attention to the stuff. So thoughts are coming up. I am not the thoughts. I am this pure awareness. This is this constant practice that we will try to maintain throughout the day if possible. Part of your mind can engage in activities. A part of your mind can have this running in the background. So keep bringing your attention back to this I, which is separate from thoughts, from emotions, from its physical objects. Keep bringing your attention back to this awareness, this I. Keep doing this discriminative analysis. You find yourself lost in thoughts, quickly apply. Remember to apply this practice. Just bring your attention back. Keep coming back to this awareness. And it's okay to get lost in thought. And just the moment you come back, you can start fresh again. Keep starting fresh over and over again. You want to be persistent. And you have to apply energy to change our habit. The habit of the mind. It's been strong. It's very strong. But with time, it will change. Time and energy. Two things that we have. So I'm not what I perceive. I am pure awareness. Bring your attention back to this place. slowly, when you're ready, you may open your eyes. So we're gonna end our class with a chant, ending chant. So feel free to chant it or listen as well. Yogarato va, Bhogarato va, Yogarato va, Bhogarato va, Sangarato va, Sangavihina, Sangarato va, Sangavihina, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva, Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva, Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva.
I don't think that was the slide that you. Oh,
Oh, was it? Sorry, my bad. Oops. All right, so we will chant the other one next sometime in the other class.
Okay.
So the meaning of this verse is the reason why we do this work, which is to realize the self. And once we do, we know how to enjoy in this world. And I was thinking about, this, like the effectiveness of this work. The effectiveness of this work is directly related to the attention and energy we put in, just like anything else in this world. And it'll happen quickly to some people. It may seem like it happens quickly to some people, and it seems like it happens different. But like all we have is energy and attention, and everyone only has 24 hours in a day. So depending on how much we do this work and how much of our energy goes into thinking about doing the tool, or sort of engaging with the tools that we learn, that's going to be directly related to the outcome. And how much baggage we all come with, that all depends on person to person, and we have to work through that. But these tools are going to help you sort of move beyond those and sort of dissolve our karma, as the word we use in this work, the baggage. So I hope we all get to this place where we can revel in the self, because as we will learn, this is the purpose of a human birth. We can be successful and do things in the physical world, which is great, but then that doesn't quite satisfy us also. So what will truly satisfy us is reveling in the self. So I hope that's a reality for all of us, and thank you all for joining. This was fun, and I will see you all next week.